Hello everyone, this is Nitpicking Nerd, and this is my review of episode 5 of season 3 of Lower Decks, called Reflections. Nothing really amazing or original, but it did have a few scenes that made me laugh a lot. And as always, there's a lot of really good attention to detail and a lot of parody of all kinds of little things from all the previous shows, and it's done lovingly, meaning you can tell that it's made by people who actually know and love the old shows, and they do poke fun at all the silly little things, but that's the same kind of things that we, the fans, have always poked fun at lovingly. And at the same time, they're also pointing out all the good things in Star Trek side to side with all the silly little things, and so it kind of balances it out, and so I'm perfectly fine with that kind of parody. And again, all the attention to the detail, the amount of references they do and do them correctly really impresses me, and it is fun to me personally. And so I personally do enjoy that aspect of the show. I know some people complain that this show is nothing but member berries, and there is some point to the fact that this show doesn't really do a lot of original stories or ideas, and they're just kind of taking all the previous stuff and playing with it and making fun of it. So there is some point to it, but at least they're doing it well. At least every time they have a member berry and the reference, at least it's mostly correct and pokes fun at it in an actually funny way. At least in this episode I did find a lot of that stuff funny, and obviously in a loving way, because at the same time they also point out all the good things, and so that's why I personally am fine with it and I do enjoy it for the most part. There were two plots in this episode. One of them was about Rappaport having a malfunction in his implant, and apparently he's taken over by a different personality, and he thinks it must be an anaphasic alien. And that also made me laugh, because the only time we heard the term anaphasic alien or anaphasic energy was in the TNG episode Sub Rosa, when Beverly Crusher fell in love with the ghost, and in the end of the episode she said the ghost must be some kind of anaphasic creature, and anaphasic energy is extremely unstable and it needs an organic host in order to survive. And so Rappaport thought he must have been taken over by an anaphasic alien. So I thought that was a nice attention to detail. And the real Rappaport is stuck in reflections. You can only see him when there's some kind of reflection somewhere nearby, and I think that's also similar to a lot of older episodes. There was one in TOS when Uhura saw Kirk in a mirror because he was stuck in some other dimension, and in the other shows often people would see all kinds of things only in a mirror or in a reflection. And so it's also similar to a lot of stuff, I'm sure, from not just from Star Trek but all kinds of media. And so it turns out that the guy who possessed him is not an alien, but is actually himself from before he got the implant. Apparently his personality completely changed after whatever happened to him that gave him the implant. He now has a totally different personality, and yet his older personality was still somewhere in there, and so he managed to take over the body. And later we have a bunch of scenes inside their brain in which they're fighting it out over who gets to control the body. And that is kind of an interesting idea. It would actually pose an interesting decision to make over who gets to have the body if there are two different personalities, one of whom was the original one and the second one was one who emerged later. And the original one is shown to be kind of a nasty character, and he's totally different. He's not a nerd, he was kind of a cool guy, but he was also into engines and engineering and all of that. And we still don't get the full answer over what exactly happened to him. There was some kind of cover-up, someone wanted to erase his memory or something for some reason. We don't yet get the answer in this episode. All of this was first teased in the ending of the previous season, by the way, when we first saw that flashback of the guys operating on him and saying he won't remember anything, something like that. So anyway, I enjoyed the first half of this story when it was all on the ship and the guy who so-called possessed him is going around pretending to be him. All of that stuff was kind of funny. Later on it's all inside their brains, in which they're kind of racing each other in their made-up space vehicles, and our Rappaport simply recreates the Delta Flyer that Tom Paris designed on Voyager, so that was another reference, and they're doing like a space race. So all of that stuff was okay, but not really that amazing. In the end, of course, the old Rappaport died, so that our Rappaport can come back, and this was once again kind of a reset button. Nothing really changes. I kind of expected maybe both of them will merge into a new kind of character, but I guess they didn't want to do that. So all of that stuff was okay, but not amazing, nothing really interesting. They didn't really debate the morality topic of who should have the body, who should have the rights over it, like some of the classic Star Trek episodes would have done, like a trial episode to decide what is more moral and all of that. So they didn't really go there. It was more about who was more clever to beat the other one inside their brain. And so it all came back to normal in the end. And the second plot line was about Mariner and Boimler being sent down to a planet to try to recruit people to join Starfleet. And that's where we had so many little references to all the previous shows in a very fun way. And all the different kinds of aliens we see around them are ones that I recognize from all kinds of episodes. And constantly people would come up to them and kind of insult Starfleet and poke fun at things that we, the fans, have also been poking fun at. Like, why are their uniforms keep changing? And there's a reference to the episode Conspiracy about those little bugs that took over Starfleet admirals, and Boimler thinks they're just conspiracy nuts, and then Mariner tells him that that actually happened. And the way that those aliens said that they said those bugs crawled up admirals' butts to take over their brains, and that was really funny. And I wish this show would have simply stated that Mariner grew up on the Enterprise D, that she was a child on the Enterprise D. That would explain so much. It would explain how come she knows about all those different incidents, as if she was there personally, and maybe that's why she's so messed up. If she grew up on a ship that was constantly in danger, constantly being attacked by aliens and going through all that crazy stuff, that would explain everything. It would explain how she knew Riker that well, and why he was her mentor and all of that. They never actually stated that in the show. I wish they would. That would explain so much. And also in the booth next to them, there's a lady who's doing archaeology, and she's a free spirit, and she's doing whatever she wants, and she just goes to different planets to dig up archaeological artifacts. That was obviously inspired by Vesh from TNG. I kind of wish it was actually Vesh, or if there was some kind of a connection, if that was her daughter or something, that could have been fun. And that's what I mean, that I wish this show would do more than just references, that they would actually continue the story in some way, that maybe they would actually bring up all those loose ends and continue them in a proper way in an actual story and not just as a reference. So anyway, this lady is obviously not Vesh. She said that she was in Starfleet in the past and she's too young to be Vesh, and yet she's the same type of character, and she keeps poking fun at Starfleet as well. And all kinds of different aliens come up and insulting them, and there were those aliens from the episode The Most Toys, the one with Fajo who kidnapped Data to add to his collection, and he had that guest with the strange metal things in his face, and we see the same kind of aliens here, and they even have little Datas in their collection. And it's also fun to see all the different items in their collection. One of them is that Bajoran artifact from Deep Space Nine, and apparently Spock's helmet is there. And some of those paintings are the ones we saw on a merchant ship in the previous season as well. And I think those were some of Data's paintings of Spot. And there's a painting of a binary female. And I recognize most of the aliens in the background. We see the Vorgons that we saw in that Ryza episode. And we see the Benzite alien. And we see the fish people from Manhunt. And we see the Federation colony scientists who are always really annoying in so many episodes, so they kind of poke fun at that as well. And constantly it was Mariner who was being annoyed by everything, and Boimler was just sitting quietly. But after they insulted the uniform, that's when he suddenly snapped and started going berserk and attacking everyone and poking fun at them, at all their silly stuff. And that was the scene that was the most funny, maybe one of the funniest scenes in the whole show in my opinion, was when he started going around attacking all these different aliens and calling them out for their stupid things. And so, for example, there was those aliens from the Deep Space Nine episode Move Along Home, probably one of the worst episodes in the whole franchise, and he started telling them to stop trapping people inside of games, which is what they did in that episode. So this is the kind of obscure little reference that most people probably wouldn't even get, but I got it immediately, and I immediately laughed at that. And so he starts going around insulting all the aliens. Some of them previously accused Starfleet of starting wars and fighting aliens all the time. And so now he responds that we never wanted to fight anyone, we just want to go and explore space and study quasars, and yet we do the right thing by protecting all of you from all the hostile aliens, even though we don't have to. And so that's what I mean, that they poke fun at all the silly stuff, while simultaneously pointing out all the good things. And so that's why I say this is done with love. I don't feel as if it's mocking the old shows. I feel as if it's kind of poking fun at it in a loving way, which is also respectful. And because of the attention to detail, because everything looks exactly right, and the jokes are funny in my opinion, so that's why I do enjoy this. That's why I am liking this. I did find this scene specifically very funny. I do wish the show would be a little bit more original and to add their own stuff as well, and maybe to actually have new stories. And maybe I wouldn't mind if they continue all their storylines to show what happened next. Maybe they're not allowed to do that because maybe they're keeping all that stuff for future live shows, and maybe that's why they don't want to continue any big plot lines. Like at one point of the episode, one of those conspiracy aliens, who I think one of them looked like a Sona alien, and one of them asked, when will you reveal what really happened to Cisco and all of that. So, you know, those are the kind of things I wish the show would actually do. Like, I wouldn't mind seeing Cisco come back in the show, but maybe they're not allowed to do that because they want to keep it for future potential live action shows, and so that's why they will never continue any big plot line from the previous shows in this show, because this show is more of a parody. It's not taking itself that seriously, so maybe they're not allowed to play with any big galactic events in any big way except references. And so we cannot blame this show too much if they're under limitations, but nothing is stopping them, I think, from making just original stories that are not connected to anything. And that's what I wish they would do. If they actually had an actual new story of some new adventure, some new science fiction story or idea, I would prefer it. So that's why I cannot say the show is perfect. It is lacking in some ways with its imagination and originality, so I do wish they would do some more new things, but I do enjoy what they are doing, which is a parody of the previous stuff, because at least they do it well. So that's my opinion. Let me know what you think, and we can discuss all of this in the comments below, and I will see you all next time. Bye bye.